I must say that I'm really proud to be here because I really feel really special today because Black History Month. And you may want to ask me what makes it really special. It's just because you see, like every Black person or anyone, any human being at all, if you don't know your history, you don't know where you're coming from, you're like lost in the middle of nowhere. And I think your history really helps you to really use as a baseline, as a skateboard to know where your future or is leading you to or how to press for your future. You need that baseline. And if I look today, like my children that are probably over 20 now, 23, 20 and so on, the book written by you on the history of Edo Kingdom is just coinciding with what my wish is, that my children would definitely get to know their real roots, where they come from in Africa. And this really helps them. So having a Black History Month like this is one great step, in having to point people back to their history and appreciating the goods of their roots, their heritage. Now, what is the Black History Month and how did it come about? If I just give a little bit of breakdown, Black History Month actually started by one historian. His name is Carter G. Woodson from 1875 to 1950. He actually started this Black History Month. He wanted to focus attention on contribution of African Americans to the United States. But now this is spread across various continents that is being celebrated. And why February? Very simple. The February month is actually created to focus attention on the contributions of JFK, Abraham Lincoln of the US president, who issued the Emancipation of Proclamation in 1863, and Frederick Douglass, an American orator and social performer. So these are actually what the Black History Month is about, and we really appreciate the fact that a lot of people have taken it up, and especially my sister who's written this such a wonderful book that I will get a copy for myself as well, and also for the presentation you're going to hear later on during this session. I just try to keep it as short as possible, and by the program I will go to the next step. Maybe quick one for most of you online. I am based in Zurich, in Switzerland. I'm also a proud Edoman who's lived in Zurich or in Switzerland for the past 30 years, been in banking, and I really appreciate anything that really ties me or takes me back to my heritage. So you enjoy the session today. So now to co-host with me, I have one special brother, special man. He's called Powerful Steve. Actually, his name is Mr. Steve Kerr, but he likes to go with the name Powerful Steve. So I'll hand over now to Powerful Steve. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Johnson. And it is a pleasure and an honor to meet you and connect with you on this platform. And definitely, I don't want us to just drift away, because I heard that you mentioned that you are an Ido. You said Ido?
Yes, correct.
And so I was born in Jamaica, and I was raised in Canada. And in 2001, I discovered my heritage, and I'm Nigerian. And so where the powerful comes from, it's kind of threefold, but I will tell you from one perspective, my African name is Alagbara, and it means powerful. So instead of using the African, I use the meaning of it, because I'm an inspirational speaker, and Powerful Steve sounds very good on stage. Right? So there you have it. I've embraced my roots, and here we are talking about Black history and the importance of Black history. And I just basically gave you a testimony of my journey. When I was 12 years old was the first time I watched a movie called Roots by Alex Haley. And that was my first inception of learning about slavery. And so I had asked God a question. I said, who am I? And so, like I said, in 2001, I got the opportunity to do some research and discovered that I came from West Africa, which is Nigeria. And so here I am now, embracing and acknowledging that and wanting to immerse myself more into. So when you talk about the importance of Black history, let's use the analogy of a tree. A tree has five major components. You have the roots, where nobody really sees. Then you have the trunk of the tree, and attached to the trunk of the tree are the branches. And then from that, you have the leaves. And then, of course, the last thing is the fruits. And so they're the five components there. And so essentially, the fruits, the leaves, the branches, and the trunks will not exist without the roots. And so that said, it's very important for each and every one of us to know our roots, to know where we come from, to know where we are, and most definitely to know where we're going. So that's my 2 minutes words on Black history. And I just want to bring the attention now to the woman of the hour, the reason why each and every one of us have gathered. I've got the opportunity to meet her some 4 or 5 years ago, and we've become friends. And I'm just so happy and proud of Nebo TV and all what she's done, being in broadcasting, being a mother, now being an author. And I'm proud to introduce my friend Ekhator-Obogie.
Thank you so much, powerful Steve. Thank you. And I welcome everybody to this program. Quickly, I'm going to share a PowerPoint presentation. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, we're seeing it.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So welcome to today's program, everyone. Black History Month. I'm the author of this historical book, Great Benin, the Alcazar of Post-Colonial Culture and its relationship with the Europeans since 1400 AD. When I published this book, people were curious about the word Alcazar. You know, some of them were even researching, looking for a dictionary to know the definition of Alcazar. Alcazar is like a fortress. Another word for Alcazar is fortress, you know. So for the purpose of today's presentation, this book is divided into 3 sessions. So I started with the pre-colonial era. So I also look at the colonial era and the post-colonial era, which is my time, all right? So under the pre-colonial era, we have a lot. I discussed about the advent of the Europeans in the Benin Kingdom that started in the late 15th century. All right, the Portuguese were the first wave of Europeans to the Benin Kingdom. So I'm not going to go more in detail so that I don't waste too much of your time. If you want the book, you can purchase the book online. We have it on Amazon as well. So I narrow it down to the colonial era, when Benin was invaded by Britain in 1897. So for the purpose of Black History Month celebration, you know, I highlighted an historical fact about Benin. For those who don't know this history, the advent of the Europeans to Benin predated the discovery of the Americas. The Benin has already established a strong relationship with the Europeans before the discovery of the new world of the Americas by Christopher Columbus in 1492. When you look at the history of Benin, the Europeans, the Portuguese, visited Benin around 1484. So, which means the Benin Kingdom has already established a mutual relationship with the Europeans before the discovery of the Americas. It's a fact. I just want to share this for the purpose of a Black History Month celebration. Okay, so under the colonial era, when the British people invaded Benin Kingdom, you know, they also call it the British Punitive Expedition. I also did a summary of what happened, what led to the war, you know, the Ubune massacre, when the royal armies killed some British officials in Benin that exacerbated the war. So I highlighted that as well. So I also narrowed it down to post-colonial era. what happened during the post-colonial era. I had two grandmothers. My maternal grandmother said she witnessed the punitive expedition of the British people in Benin. So she spent like 100 and something years before she died. So she also tells us some stories of what happened during the war. She was about 8, 9 years old when the British invaded Benin Kingdom. So I highlighted her experience as a matriarch at that time, because she was the owner of a village. In Benin, you really see a woman heading a village. So I narrowed it down to my own personal experience growing up in a post-colonial culture. So I talked about my experience in the school system, how I was excluded because of my gender exclusion embedded in the school system, and the Benin Kingdom. I also argued that patriarchal arrangement of the Benin Kingdom predated the advent of the Europeans, which means the Benin Kingdom has been operating a patriarchal society before the arrival of the Europeans. That was my argument in this book as well. So yeah, this book is available on Amazon. Many people have purchased this book. I know some people are here today, they have the book already. And I thank everyone for the support. So, I believe there is one important woman in Canada that I have to shine light on today, because she's so special. And moreover, we live in the same neighborhood here in Toronto. We are here celebrating Black History Month today because of this great woman. Honorable Jane Augustine, the first Black Canadian woman elected to the Parliament of Canada. Okay, and this woman, because of her, we are all sitting here today celebrating Black History Month, because she brought the motion to the Parliament, to the Canadian Parliament. My book launch, the first session of my book launch, she attended the first session of the book launch. You can see the flyer, where the flyer I created for her, and she even had a copy of the book as well. So I just believe that for what she did, Jane Augustine single-handedly championed the unanimous votes to officially designate February as Black History Month in Canada, a woman. So because of that, I celebrate her today, and I honor her for paving the way for Black women like me and many other Black women in Canada. She came to this country as an immigrant, just like me. So she was able to change the face of Black history in Canada. So I celebrate her today.
Good, thank you very much. So I think I will invite the next speaker, the guest speaker, for a 5-minute speech. And it's no other person than Dr. Veronica Ofoegbune from California, United States. So if you're there, please kindly unmute yourself and start. By the way, Dr. Veronica is chairperson of the Nigerian American Public Affairs Committee, NAPAC, in California. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity to speak during the Black History Month. I've had so many opportunities this month to share about our experiences globally. Black people are all over the world in different ways. I heard my brother say from Jamaica. I'm proud to say that Miss Shade Ajike and I were in Jamaica a few months ago. We had so much fun. It felt like being home. I smelled home in Jamaica, right, Mrs. Ajike? We felt like
so true.
And Dr. O, all of us were in Jamaica. We want to go back again.
Yes.
We had a great time in Jamaica. So having said that, I was also in Canada, in Toronto, in your neck of the wood, Mrs. Nekpen. So it's joyful to be here. The Nebo TV Black History Month is exciting. If you look, everybody look in your chat. I have posted many links ranging from Isoke Market, my sister that has a beautiful Nigerian store, African store, Caribbean meal, everything Caribbean, African. She has a store, including the book of Honorable Nekpen Obasogie. Well done. When I heard Odibo in Iseluku language, my town, means the people that are in the service of the king. So I don't know if Odibo means that in Benin language. What does Odibo mean, sir?
I mean, it's a very simple one. I mean, some people say we came from Delta, but the simple story which my grandparents told me is actually the service. They call like we are servants of God. Because my grandparents, the whole story about it is at that time, the priest in the church, who came to Nigeria, my great grandfather was the one who carried, walked in front of the priest, so they found difficulty in pronouncing his name. And in the village, they had issues, but all they knew was to say, look at that man, the servant of God, who is always working in the church. So that's how my great grandfather assumed that name, and I think these children took over that name. They were just popular with the name as people who were always serving in the church at that time. So that was how the name came about. But it means the same thing, even in Yoruba and whatever.
Exactly. And so that leads me to my appreciation for the book of our sister. Iseluku was founded by Chief Wadie in the early 80s. And Chief Wadie was one of the sons of the king of Benin. So everything that Iseluku does, the king has to send an entourage. And our king, before you become king, you have to spend a year training under whoever is the current king. So it was a very interesting one, because as King Eware, Oba Eware, was trying to become king, he had to be training a king who became king the same year as him. So it was a very interesting. And the current king of my town is a very young man, is my nephew as well. So I'm challenging this full book that Lady Ekhator-Obogie wrote is history of our land. And like the description of the tree, you have to tap from the tree, right? So your proof of your name being the same name and the same meaning in my town is those connections. So I'm predicting that the next book by Sister Nekpen is going to be the connection of Isileuku and the Edo people, because the way that she described, if you start reading the book, you don't want to drop it. You know how you eat popcorn and you can't drop it. The same feeling. I really, even if you don't know the history of Benin, when you pick up this book, you can't drop it, because it's so, you just want to wrap up and you start imagining that you're seeing the action. And when Sister Nekpe takes you to how she got the story, that's the joy that we need now. We need to write our own history, not somebody else writing it. So she heard it from the horse's mouth. Our story of the Black people, African people, is oral tradition. She described pure oral tradition. She sat down in the luscious opportunity of listening to your grandparents. And as I read it, I connected completely. I remember going to that village the way she did, sit down at the end of the day when you've had dinner under the moonlight, and the grandparents or grandma, grandpa would sit and tell you those great stories. My favorite part of those stories is listening to the song. And when we get to repeat the song and the chorus, I love that part. And sometimes you're allowed to dance. So as I was reading Sister Nekpen's book, I was imagining myself being there and sitting down. My not so favorite part is when they end the folklore at the end of the day. And so when she was saying it, I was imagining myself. And it was so exciting. It was painful, some of the experiences, but we have to tell the painful stories. And I'm so proud of Dr. And you know what? I keep thinking Dr. Nekpe. I think
don't worry, I will soon become a doctor. Trust me, this year I will give you the good news, okay?
You know what? It keeps coming. I keep wanting to say that, then I just say, let me say, Dr. Nekpe, I just really think that even the story makes her a doctor, because the research was deep. In fact, for her dissertation, she shouldn't be looking for another topic. This should be the dissertation topic, and then build on it, because the next story is going to be the connection of Isileuku to the Benin Kingdom. We already have a book written, so we can weave it. Maybe we can even co-write it. I really want to see, right here before all of us, we saw the connection with the Odibo. And the Odibo are the people that serve the king in my town, that they are the village is the village of the king, and they are royalty in my town. So it's very exciting, the connection, the reality of this story. Please pick it up, read it. This book is already designed for the classroom. So I've already presented it to different people. I haven't told Sister Nekwen, but different people, history teachers in elementary, an app. I sell literacy app in Nigeria. I work with the Silicon Valley in Dr. O's area, Delaware, and I gave it to them. So they are asking a lot of questions. Can we use this for elementary, high school? I said it actually can be children, adults, because for a child, it's so legible. The pictures are captivating. They're real. She is there with history. So children in 50, 100 years time, when they read that book, they'll be like, oh my God, the writer was right there with the history. She's in the Obas Palace. She's in the historical places. So she didn't have to tell it from people telling. She heard it from her parents, her grandparents in her formation age. And that sits with us. And the story of the tortoise that you mentioned, it was so, there's no African story without the tortoise. And what does tortoise signify? It signifies wisdom. Lessons. They teach you so many lessons through the tortoise. In fact, when I saw a tortoise, I wanted a real tortoise to tell me story, because I thought that they tell the story, because they make you think the tortoise. So I can go on and on, but this book is an amazing documentary. So there should be the PBS documentary of her book, where PBS should walk her through. So if you have access to PBS, KQED, all those, we need it documented, just like Ali Mosrui and the Africans. And they did it. I would sit here and I would just wrap myself up to watch as Ali Mosrui. And when you read the book of Sister Nekwe, it's that way. And if you're here, please take the book and walk up to your school district and show them the history. Tell them this is history book from the horse's mouth that must be read. All our artifacts are still at the museum, stolen artifacts. And then in this book, it tells you how it was stolen, how they broke in, they tried to fight, they confused people, and they steal it. And a lot of them are still stolen and in museums. And all of us should read the book, but think of an action item. The first one is to take the book to your children's teacher. If you're a grandparent, to your grandparents' children. If you're in college students should use it as books that they reference, because it's real. It's, I can just go on and on. If you're in California, anywhere, just click on some of the links or copy and paste them to your browser and order the book. Amazon can get it to you right away. I was very lucky. I got an autographed one directly from the author herself. So I'm happy to be here, and I really want to thank everyone who responded and joined us today. Please stay tuned for more great information from the rest of us. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nekwe, Mrs. Nekwe. Dr. Nekwe, let me just hit it and call it. Dr. Nekwe, thank you. Great job, great job, great job.
Thank you, ma. Thank
awesome.
you.
Phenomenal.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Veronica. Really, really wonderful speech. Really appreciated. And I think you're right, because I don't know, maybe I also made the mistake before, but it's really not a mistake. I think she deserves to be called Dr. Nekwe.
She earned it.
She's really earned it, really. So I fully buy into that as well. So now to introduce the guest speaker for today is no other person than Mr. Ekhator-Obogie Osaisonor Godfrey. He's actually a PhD student, or probably has working on his PhD from Nigeria. So please tell us what you have. Over to you, Mr. Osaisonor Godfrey.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Johnson Odibo, and thank you, my able sister, Sister Nekwe, for the invitation. And thank you for the powerful words
Apologies.
Sorry
It's
for the
always a
interruption.
problem. Yes, sorry. You can carry on. We
I
know.
was getting noise from the background. I had to stop them. I'm Ekhator-Obogie Godfrey. I'm a researcher from the Institute for Benin Studies. Like you rightly noted, I'm a PhD student. I've been working for the past couple of years on issues related to Benin history and Benin culture. And interestingly, to add to what Dr. Veronica said earlier, when she asked what is Odibo, and I heard your Christian perspective. I was impressed, but not happy, because Odibo were the very first guards when political evolution started in Benin Kingdom. It started with the gerontocratic system, which we call the Odion way, and we call them Odibo Odion way. It finally evolved to Giso era, and we call them Odibo Giso. And from there, today, they are called Abiogbe and also Isimeru. These are the police of the traditional rulers. So it is not because he was standing in front of the Catholic priests or the missionaries. No.
You see, I'm learning something here. Thank you.
Because he is a descendant of those who have performed that duty of providing security for the society they live in.
I'm taking notes.
Today I've been asked by my thank you so much, Johnson.
And they are
I've been asked by my sister.
and they are part of royalty in my own town, like I was explaining to him.
I've been asked by my sister to come make this very brief presentation, and I asked her this evening what has she used, because maybe her words were so sweet that day that I accepted to do that, and it's very unusual of me. But I'm also pleased that I've been given this platform to speak to a global audience on no other subject, but a subject that is dear to my heart, that is also at the core of my research work. And I've titled it Benin, a Living Museum, because we are at a time, like Dr. Veronica mentioned, where objects which has originated from Africa were looted during in the early decades of the 20th century in various ethnographic museums around the world, and there is a strong debate about their restitution. And when we think museum, it often comes to our mind, what often comes to our mind are these objects. So today, rather than discuss museum in the context of these objects, we're discussing museum in the context of the society we live in, which is Benin Kingdom. So I've titled this presentation, Benin City, a Living Museum.
We cannot see it properly. Can you guys see this?
No,
it's
kind of low.
It's not legible.
Yes. Reshare again and see.
Or can you forward it to Sister Nekwen? Then she can
also. Exactly.
The co-host, I should have.
Yeah, it's not legible. Your prints aren't legible. So I think just forward it to her.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the network.
Is it okay now?
No, it's a network. It's not legible. It's blurry.
Send me the document. I will share it from here. It's the network. It's not strong enough.
Okay.
Yeah, post it to her, and then she can forward it by email if you can, or forward it to WhatsApp.
Send it to my email.
You get it now. You get it now. Just a minute.
While she's forwarding it, Sister Nekwen, I want to recognize the Nigerian young man who played in Super Bowl. His mother's here, and we're very proud of her. Nigeria, you know, Super Bowl in the US is the biggest event that just happened. So I just want to recognize Mrs. Awuzie, the mother of this superstar. Our Nigerian.
Congratulations.
Wow.
The son made us proud, played in Super Bowl. Yeah, Nigerian children are everywhere. So
Yeah.
thank you, Mrs.
Everywhere.
Amuzie, for being here. She's also a writer. I want to connect both of you so that she can help you project your work here in US too.
Oh, that would be nice.
Yes.
Yeah, I will talk to her after the program.
Exactly.
And you are
Okay,
welcome
I'm
to this
open to
program.
that. That's
Thank
why
you
I
so
called
much.
in.
So while we are waiting for Godfrey, if you have anything to say, you can go ahead.
Mrs. Amuzie, please talk about what can happen between you and this amazing woman, you writers. I love both of you.
Well, basically, when anything Dr. Veronica is involved in, of course, I give my support because she's a woman of substance. Those of us that live here in the Bay Area, we all know that.
Yeah.
So when I saw this and I saw she was connected, I'm like, okay, if she's connected, it has to be good. So, and then I read some of the published, like the things that she put on WhatsApp about it, and saw the author. I'm someone who likes to support, our community, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to call in. Believe it or not, I misunderstood the date. I thought it was yesterday.
She was bugging me yesterday.
Like 10 minutes before time. And I kept waiting, and I took a screenshot of myself, and then I sent it to her. She didn't respond. So I kept waiting until it was 10:15. I took another screenshot, and then I sent it to her again. I said, what's happening? Is this not happening? It's tomorrow.
Yeah. Thank you.
It is tomorrow.
Thank you for
So I said, okay, I will try my best to call in. Believe it or not, I have another conference call. I put them on mute. They don't even hear me.
I love you. Thank you. Thank you.
I said, I need to participate in this. So I'm here, and then we can talk, after. And my sister, you don't have to be a doctor. I only have my bachelor's degree, and I write.
Amen.
My website, my blog site, where I write monthly. You will see the things I have talked about. I've written about Nigerian parents, being very proud of Nigerian parents, what we have achieved in the diaspora. I wrote about SARS. I've written up in vast, topics. And my own books, Dr. Veronica knows, is
I follow you. I follow you.
Thank you so much. I don't want to take away your time. Thank you so much.
I have a quick question for you. Are you writing non-fiction or fiction books?
Non-fiction.
Oh,
They are real.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I misspoke. Fiction. I'm sorry.
Fiction. Okay.
Fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we can see now. We can see it.
Yes, we can see it's legible now. Thank you, Miss Amuzie.
You're
All right, thank you so much.
Excuse me. You guys don't know so much about Madam Victoria Vicky Awuzie. You are in the Bay Area of Northern California. We recall that Vicky Awuzie is the one who started the Nigerian annual Independence Day celebration that went viral all over the world. She did it for a couple of years, and that brought a whole of the Nigerian community together. In fact, today being the Black History Month, people like this should be remembered for being a true patriot of the Nigerian nation at home and abroad. Thank you very much, Mrs. Awuzie. You are wonderful, you are phenomenal. Thank you all, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Veronica. Wherever you put your foot, I match my step on it right away. Thank you.
God bless you, Honorable Chief. Thank you.
Thank you for the recognition. Thank you.
God bless you, Nekme Obasogie, for what you're doing. Please push it up, and I'm with you always. And God is behind us.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gwosa language founder, the Gwosa language.
You, sir.
God bless.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Awesome.
Thank you.
You are wonderful.
Yes, Nekben, would you allow me to say something, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I've really been looking forward to hear from the fruit that is in the room, because I used the analogy of a tree, and we talked about the roots and the trunk and the branches and the leaves. But we do have a young attendance that's with us here, and I do feel that we owe her to hear what she has to bring forth to the Black History Month. She came prepared, and I'm excited to hear from her.
Oh, wonderful.
Princess K.
So
Ah,
if you don't mind, okay, if you don't mind, can I just jump in? So we should be conscious of the person logged in from Nigeria,
Okay.
who's supposed to do his presentation, because from Nigeria logging in, you don't have the luxury of time in terms of
It's true.
data. So let's respect and probably focus on this presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Good idea.
Thank you very much. Okay, now that we can see my screen, sorry, I don't have the PowerPoint presentation, but I just have the paper presented here.
Okay.
And I say that, like I said earlier on, that many artifacts have become the order of museum discourse, and restitution has become also a front burner in global debate with regard to how to deal with cultural properties that were looted or taken within questionable circumstance from the first decade or 22nd decade up to the middle of the 20th century. I've said amongst what we have in different museum collections around the world, it's important that the Benin objects have their place of pride and are given a special space, because from February 1897, these objects were taken illegally and they were globally circulated. One interesting part about this object was that when they arrived in Europe, the Europeans never believed that this object could have been made by Africans. And it took a while, and it took the effort of two Germans, like Frobenius and Felix von Loschan, who were very committed and ardent lover of ethnographic properties. And so they went into concerted studies, and they were collecting these objects, and they came to the conclusion that these works were from Africa and these were works of art. So when we go back at what has happened in February 1897, it gives us a kind of feverish feeling, gives us the cause to worry about how our land were pillaged, how there was this disruption and destruction, and how we were separated from our civilization, which has been made global. But today, the world in general has acknowledged that we were civilized people. And what speaks for us are these objects that were globally circulated, these objects that were looted and globally circulated, majority of which were made in Benin City. And that brings the question of how much do we know about Benin City itself, if Benin City was the source of these exquisite objects or materials or cultural properties that adorn various museums around the world. Hence the title, Benin City, a Living Museum. Here is a map of Benin City in the early 20th century. And we are focusing on this part that is covered by, if you see this zigzag line, which is the inner wall. I have another map that also shows us here. We're looking at Benin City. Benin City, we have an outer wall, we have an inner wall, but our focus today is on the city within the inner wall. Benin City is known by different names. In the earliest time, it was called Igodomigodo, a name that was given to it by the Ogiso Igodo. Later, it was also known as Ile Ibinu, a name that was given to it by the first Oba Romion, who has stayed long in Ife, or was born and bred in Ife by his father, Ikaladeran. In the course of establishing the second dynasty, the Oba dynasty, Oba Ewedo called the land Ubini, which means a land of inexhaustible wealth. Also, Oba Ewari, during his reign, had a very a narrow escape. He would have been executed if not for the love shown him by a steward of Ogefa, whose name was Edo. As a result of that, when he became king, he decided to honor his friend Edo, and he called the land Edo, a short form of Edonewaire, meaning the city of love, just like you have Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. So the Europeans had corrupted the name Ubini to Benin, B-I-N-E, Benin, but with the pronouncement of His Royal Majesty of Monoba Nedo Kwakbolokbolo, or Bayeridewa Nojawa Nedo of blessed memory, he insisted in an address in 1992 and later in 2006 that the kingdom and the people should be known as Benin, B-E-N-I-N. The kingdom during the pre-colonial era extends from as far as Dahomey down to the Congo. And this area where the sovereignty of the kingdom extends were areas where different states, different kingdoms, different towns and villages pay allegiance to the Oba of Benin at different times. It is also important we note that the empire was fluid, but the kingdom was, of course, for a long time permanent until the sack in 1897. So pre-colonial Benin city traditionally applies to the seat of Benin monarch, which I've described before, the city within the moat. It is today the capital of Edo State in Nigeria, thus being the socio-economic and political capital of the empire. Benin city has been the focus of scholars in their attempt to understand the religious, socio-economic, and political achievements of Benin people. Very many scholars from Europe and a few of the first generation of Benin historians, sociologists, anthropologists, and archaeologists has always focused on Benin city, the capital, leaving out the vast area of the provinces, such studies that would have been able to answer questions that have been questions like the questions raised by Dr. Veronica. What is the relationship between Benin and Iseluku? What is the relationship between Benin and other neighboring states? So our aim in this presentation is to demonstrate to Benin people and the world the grandeur of Benin city as a living culture with historical significance. It is the objective of this presentation to also highlight some features and monuments of Benin city. So I will also be looking at, in this presentation, my aim also will be to help us know more about the great ancient city of Benin. Then we may ask ourselves at the end of the presentation, if we bring the past into the present, will Benin city be alive? And two, or if we decide to bring the present into the past, will Benin city be alive? It's a two-way thing. I will leave these questions to you, my distinguished listeners, to answer at the end of the presentation. So I have the presentation in the following order. I've done the introduction. I'll quickly look at the museum concept. I will also describe how the Benin conceived the concept of museum. Then I'll talk about Benin as a living museum by mentioning and describing the different monuments that exist in Benin Kingdom that speaks to this museum significance of Benin. Then I'll look at digital Benin. I call this session digital Benin because I'll be talking about what benefit will digitization do for Benin as a living museum, and then we'll conclude. Here is a map created by the Bamshak Tours in Benin City. It shows you different streets, different roads, and different quarters in Benin. Currently, there is a project that we are working on, and there we are able to identify different traditional quarters for the different guilds. I will mention a few of them in the course of this presentation. What is a museum? The International Council of Museum have, over the years, tried to give, although not a definitive definition of what a museum should be or what a museum is, but at least they've tried to direct the course of this definition, what a museum ought to be. They try to shape the idea surrounding the museum functions, the roles of the museum as an institution, and its relation with the community. So then they've given us in 2017 basic features that we should look out for when we talk about a museum. And one of these is how the museum retain, even if current terminology may differ, it will retain the unique, defining and essential unity in museum of the functions of collecting, preserving, documenting, researching, exhibiting, and in other ways, communicating the collections or other evidence of cultural heritage. Two, they also say that where to be clear on the purpose of museum and on the value base from which museum meets their sustainable, ethical, political, social, and cultural challenges and responsibilities in the 21st century. So this must be clear if museum must perform this function or fulfill its purpose in this regard. He said that the museum must acknowledge as a matter of urgency, the crisis in nature, that the museum should not just be about artifacts. There is this aspect of museum that are not dealing with natural history, that are looking at the environment. That the museum must acknowledge and recognize with concern the legacies and continuous presence of deep societal inequalities. I heard my sister when she was talking about gender sensitivity. It's quite a pity and sometimes very disheartening for us when we look back into our history, and then there's so much emphasis and this imbalance that our society was patriarchal, and then people begin to portray us as patriarchal without looking at the fact that there were very important women in our society, and their roles were also recognized and praised, and is still being celebrated till tomorrow. We'll also see that in part of this presentation. In 5, the ICOM also said that one of the features should also be that the museum should acknowledge and recognize with respect and consideration that the vastly different worldviews, conditions, and traditions under which museum works across the globe. Because what I call a museum today will 20 years ago not be considered a museum. Well, we have different worldviews. The Benin cosmology is different from the European cosmology. And then when Europeans were running for ethnographic museum, they were coming to our fathers' houses to collect and destroy our individual museums, which is going to be the core of this discussion today. They said that the museum, to express the commitment of the museum to meaningful meeting places and open a diverse platform for learning and exchange. So if the museum is a meaningful meeting place and a platform where there are exchanges, what we are doing now could also be a museum, because it's already a platform. There are going to be exchanges, and this is documented digitally, which is the future museum already. And they've also said that the museum should express the unity of expert role of museums with the collaboration and shared commitment, responsibility, and authority in relation to their communities. As an expert, I shouldn't be talking about the museum in Kano, but rather in relation to my community, which is my laboratory. And of course, that's a very important feature when we look out for the museum. And the last one, they said, it should express the accountability and transparency under which museums are expected to acquire and use their material, financial, social, and intellectual resources. So any way you define the museum, these 8 features, we will look at for them. Then I have 2 definitions coming from scholars who have worked previously on Benin. One from late Professor Emeritus Osaisonor, who we popularly call the Beninologist, and also from Flora Kaplan, who acquired the Benin name while studying Benin Kingdom and was known as Edo Uwaye. Prosperity and wealth is in Benin. Consequent upon these parameters that have been mentioned above, the evolving definition of museum, it is no longer fashionable to describe a museum in the context of a building, the old style of describing ethnographic museum, which is all everywhere in Europe. And today, I want to quickly say this. These ethnographic museums are transforming. They are evolving. They are coming into the digital space. For example, in 2012, during the Museum Day celebration, Ekhator-Obogie laid emphasis on the museum functions of information and knowledge transmission by describing the museum as social artifacts, the collections and specimens of means of communicating ideas and values. It is therefore imperative to note that to accomplish this function and realize its goals of transmitting knowledge, either as a social artifact or a location, that is a space or a place, a museum must exist as an embodiment and conveyor of civilization of the past. This is rightly summarized in the words of Flora Kaplan when she said, museums are social antiquities themselves. They are true collections and specimens, a means of communicating ideas and value, seen as verbal and non-verbal means by which society can and does reshape and represent itself to itself. That represents itself to itself emphasizes transmitting of knowledge and values, because Nekben, grandmother, was there to transmit to Nekben, bringing to the knowledge of Nekben what the society Nekben was going from is, or what it once was. So in general, a museum could be described as antiquities and or a space or a place comprising collections of tangible and intangible heritage for the purpose of education, study, enjoyment, in accordance with professional standard of operation for individual and the society to develop in different ways. A museum could therefore be simply referred to as a living space or place due to its potential to transmit the knowledge of the past to the present for the transformation of the future. And this is where the idea of the living museum comes to place. Wherever we have a museum, it must be that which is a place where the knowledge of the past are brought to the present through this kind of platform that we're having for transformation of the future, so that we are able to make meaningful impact in our society. What did our ancestors call a museum, or what was a museum in our society before 1897? Among the Benin people, or among the people of Benin Kingdom, the closest way to describe a museum was that ancestral shrine in our individual father's house. Many of you will remember while growing, those of you who grew up in Africa, I remember too that in the 90s, while growing up in Benin City here, early in the morning, our ancestors would go, our fathers would go to the house of the eldest man around, and then they would propitiate the ancestor and share this drink and kola nuts. This sign of bonding was carried out before the museum, the traditional museum, which we call in Benin, Aweimi. For an individual, it is Aweimi. For a society, a village, it is called Ogwedion. So different towns in Benin, different towns everywhere.
I want to quickly interject. Aweimi means the spirit, our ancestors.
No, ancestral altar.
Okay.
Ancestral altar. We will talk, maybe we'll mention that in the course of this discussion, or during question and answer, we'll shed more light on that. So the different Aweimi that we have are numerous. Like I've said, from individual to village to family, and there are also special courts. Like we have in Benin, we have the Ovia court, we have the PBC and others. These also have their Aweimi, because we believe as a people, we believe in the physical and the spiritual world. And the Aweimi is a medium or a medium of communication between the living and the deceased ancestors. But today, what makes an Aweimi museum for us is that of the individual nuclear family. And I said the Aweimi was the altar, mostly called shrines to look negative, of the spirit world. The creation of Aweimi or construction of Okure was usually the final ritual of Benin mortuary rites. The ritual is known as Ukome. The performer of the ritual is usually the senior surviving son. The Ukure, or a calf staff dedicated to represent the deceased and the spirits of the dead, is installed at the ancestral shrine. Therefore, every household in Benin had a museum, because when you plant that carved staff, and it is through that carved staff that you are transmitting the knowledge of the deceased to the younger ones. You are telling the younger ones, this, my great-grandfather, was a very good storyteller. He was the one that told me about the story of the war between Benin and Iseluku. You are telling these children the story of Benin and Iseluku, but there is a symbolic item that helps to reenact this story or recollect and recall this story. So Osaisonor, in these slides, argued that the Aroemi emerged because the collection of antiquities in mud, clay, bone, wood, ivory, or different items dedicated, once they are dedicated, represent the eyes of the spirits. It was believed that after these artifacts have been presented to an altar, they begin to possess this spiritual cultural potency. And these artifacts, in what we call artifacts now, we are not made for aesthetics. From this conception of, as given by Omoregie, every object that we have had a functional role in our society. So they were not just objects for aesthetics, for pleasure, but again, today's museum fulfill that purpose. And in that society, they also fulfill that purpose in our traditional society when in a household, there was this social structure in our society. The king uses ivory and bronze. Other chiefs uses wood, different type of wood. And you could tell the status of an individual by the type of material that was used to in establishing its own Aroemi. Also, why is this a museum? Collective worship was held annually before the Aroemi, festivals like the Eho Festival. And Iroya Weka stated that the shrine was exclusive and private to the entire family. And any member, part of the spiritual cultural potency of the traditional museum was that when members can come to the priest of the family, which is the eldest son, to make sacrifices, to pour libation, to propitiate their ancestors or their ancestral deities. And in doing that, the son serves as an intermediary between the living and the dead. So by virtue of this position, the head of the family or the Okagbe, in the case of the extended family, we are permitted to touch these objects. So the museum was held sacred. Our museum was sacred, and above all, it was functional. Therefore, it was believed that the ancestors could strike dead at once, or maybe make some people give them a kind of infirmity if they were not the one that were legitimately authorized to go to the altar and touch them. So this speaks to the other side of the functionality of our traditional museum in Benin. But events changed in post-1897. One, the white men touched these objects in the sacred altar, our sacred sacramentals. Nothing happened to them. And what followed?
Okay.
Godfrey said that there was a new look.
Godfrey, please, I want to quickly ask you one question. So, do you mean that it is forbidden for a foreigner or alien to touch these objects in Benin, given that they are a kind of a point of contact between the Benin people and their ancestors?
Thank you very much, Madam Nekme. I will put your question on notes, noted. I will answer it during question and answer. Let me run through this. Shall I?
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So, and what followed suit was this system of gradual degradation. And that degradation led to the annihilation of our people from our cultures. There were several movements that came up. The colonial masters were on the one hand, doing their own looting and also trying as much as possible to declare as repugnant many of our cultural practices. While on the other hand, there were missionary work, crusaders, Christians and Muslims, even Benin converts went to the extent of destroying this museum setting in traditional society because of that orientation that the museum was sacred. Museum was the family's ancestral altar. The museum had that power. They looked at the aspect of the spiritual-cultural potency of the museum to the detriment of the fact that these were established institutions that has passed on the knowledge of the people from generation to generation. They didn't look at that. And I'll give you an example of what happened. There was a particular imam in Benin. His name is Ibrahim Ekhator-Obogie, the first chief imam. He was a friend of Prince Agobasimi Oba Eweka II. And Ekhator-Obogie, when he became Muslim, encouraged a lot of people to destroy their artifacts. And you can imagine the amount of historical documentation that were lost, not just what the Europeans have looted, but rather what we destroyed, what our ancestors destroyed, all as a result of an after effect of colonialism. Again, there was an incident, an altercation between Prince Agobasimi before he became Oba and a particular chief, Igbinoba. They were then working as adult contractors for the colonial masters. And there was a particular pond that they were contracted to get sand from a particular site to fill. So while every contractor will have to go far, get red earth to come and fill this pond, Igbinoba was using the ruins of the wall that was destroyed by the 1897 war to fill this pond. And then he was challenged by Prince Agobasimi. How dare you use the ruins of my father's house to execute your project? And you know the remark of Igbinoba? Igbinoba remarked, this was the conversation, why are you using the destroyed walls of my father's house as your filling material? Then Igbinoba responded, why should not the material be used? Are you not seeing any hopes that the palace is going to be rebuilt in the future? Do you sincerely believe that there will come a time in the future when there will be another Oba in this city? Oba Ekhator-Obogie.
Oh my God. Oh,
Oba Ekhator-Obogie. I expected you to say
oh my God.
It shows you the level of destruction and disconnection that was created by colonialism and by the colonial masters.
Oh my God.
When Oba Eweka II became king, he made Igbinoba a chief. So you saw his name. I wrote here, Chief Igbinoba. Because
he made him a chief.
Yes, he also had to join in the rebuilding, in the restoration, and in the reconstruction of the kingdom.
Oh.
So some Benin people, the past was gone or had to be completely uprooted. But in 1915, Oba Eweka completed the rebuilding of the Oba's palace on the remnants of the old palace location that was burnt and looted by the British forces. So he had to also recruit Omadas, those who have served in his father's court before the 1897 massacre, and then they ran because of the war. He had to recruit some of them because now they become grown men to start teaching palace etiquette to members of his harem, to his own pages and others. It was from here that he got the idea of constructing in the 1920s, or establishing, in the 1920s, the Benin Art School, where art production was revived in Benin Kingdom. So the various Awemi, by Awemi here, I mean the various museums in the traditional setting that survived the destruction, the destructive onslaught of the 20th century had lost their spiritual esteem and were divorced from their cultural setting. Nevertheless, these various Awemi or museums remain in the service of the society, bearing the marks of Benin civilization. So the Benin people see Awemi as a museum. If you really understand as a Benin what Awemi is, you then know that this is your family museum. I'm sorry that time was not on my side and a lot of work on my hands. My sister understand. I would have made a PowerPoint presentation and show you some pictures. I visited a family some 2 days ago, and I could still see in their Awemi staffs that are numbering to about 15 or 20. And then you can understand that if you sit with the head of that family, you will hear pages of history of that family, because that will be telling you the genealogy of that family. So this is our museum. There is no doubt that the society will be reshaped and reconstructed through the appreciation and application of the indigenous knowledge preserved in an Awemi as a museum itself. Because the functional relationship between the museum and the society is an affirmation that indeed museum is a living past. Hence, the surviving monumental landmarks in Benin City are undisputably living museum. Let us look at them. Are they really living museum? Let us look at the landmark in Benin. Benin City, a living museum paradigm. Yes, we know Benin City, but how much do we know that Benin City itself is an archetype of a museum in every ramification? The existing heritage within this space called Benin City connects with the past and complement the knowledge of the cultural values and history of Benin City. So you go anywhere in Benin, when you stand anywhere in Benin, you have a history to tell, which connects you to the past. Like I said, is that bringing the past to the future or to the present, or bringing the present into the past? Remember the two questions. My audience is left for you to answer at the end of the day. So in the foreword to ICN's book, The Benin City Pilgrimage Stations, late Professor Joseph Nevadomsky elaborately depicts Benin City not merely as an archaeological site, but a living history in a kingdom that is in itself a spatial reality. It can be deduced from Nevadomsky that Benin City is not only a museum where several heritage sites exist, but itself is a living museum. According to Nevadomsky, the landscape of Benin City is traditionally designed to serve the capital of a sacred king, to continue to signify ancient values, ceremonies, and aesthetic sensibilities. Nevadomsky described Benin City as entrenched in cosmological values that are stamped upon the urban setting as a web of life and a landscape, rooted deeply in the political and mythological past. Like I just said, stand anywhere in Benin Kingdom, you'll find out that there's something that is relating to the past. It was in this sense that the present Esogban of Benin, Chief D.U. Edebiri, had written that many of these features that are in Benin City landscape are vanishing or will vanish in the course of modernization. Yes, when Nevadomsky was writing, urban Benin was just within the moats or a little bit outside the moats. But today, conurbation has extended to the extent that where that Odibo-Giso era reigned are no longer or hardly seen as a rural area. Let me put it that way, as a rural area, because urbanization has overtaken the entire space. Therefore, for me, it was a fascinating task to identify these sites so that we can bring them alive by teaching the future generation about those lovely tourist sites of attraction. One of the things I love doing in Benin as a tourist as a tour guide is to take tourists around Benin City, show you some things that would really bring out these goosebumps in you. So some of the components of Benin City as a living museum paradigm are first, the Royal Palace. We'll go back to the palace. I just briefly mentioned it before. The Royal Oba's Palace dates back to the Ogiso era. The first palace was at Ugbekum. The site is still there to date, and it is called Ogonerie. There are different palaces. During the Ogiso era, there were 3 sites. We have Ugbekum, we have Onwindun, we have another site where it's along the second, it's secular, and then you have the Ogiso market very close to it. And you have the last site, which happens to be the first Uzama Palace. But again, The architectural structure of the palace reveals the sophistication of Benin's technological development. You can't imagine that Benin had a palace that was in the minimum of 201 rooms, and there were improvements in every aspect, every facet of the palace. The palace that was destroyed in 1897 before the destruction, for those of us that know Benin very well, extends from where we call Alaka Street down to the present-day Benin prisons, where you have the Benin High Court. In Igadewa's description, he said the pre-1897 palace was 3/4 of a mile long and 1/4 of a mile wide. The present Key Square, if you have your Google map, you go there, you see the present Key Square where you have the National Museum of Benin was just the doorstep of the palace. So you could imagine the amount of destruction that was done. But again, we are also happy and proud to say that in 1915, like I mentioned before, Obaaweka II rebuilt the palace. In 1922, there was a fire incident, and then the palace was rebuilt. And when it was being rebuilt, they stopped using the traditional building material, which was a particular leaf called okwere. They now use corrugated iron sheets. So from there, the palace began to wear this new look of corrugated iron sheets. There are other palaces around Benin, particularly those belonging to the what they call the king crowners. I don't want to use the word king makers because in Benin, we don't have king makers. We only have king crowners. One officiates the ceremony of taking the name, the other officiates the ceremony of calling the original name, while another person, which is the Ulia, officiates the official presentation of the king to the world with the name or the title he is to reign with. So they are king crowners. They are not called king makers in Benin because kings are born in Benin, they are not made. So there are two of these 7 king crowners, the palace of the Olia and that of Ezomonuzebu still stand till date, and they are still very significant. So the second relic of Benin City is the Benin moat. One of the greatest works that have stand the test of time in Benin Kingdom is the Benin earthwork system. The first earthwork system in Benin Kingdom, it has always been mistaken that Obaogwola had the first earthwork Benin moat, but studies have shown by like Omorigi has shown that as far back as the time of Ogisos like Ogiso Odolige, there were moat system. But the difference, therefore, is that for the present dynasty and for the present Benin Kingdom, Obaogwola introduced the moat system because he had a trouble with the then ruler of Udo, who was Panigiakon. As a result of that, he had to fortify his kingdom, and then he had to construct a moat. Later on, during the reign of Obaawari I, the Great, who took Benin to its apogee, he had a very unfortunate incident that he lost 2 of his sons the same day. And because he was aggrieved, he decided to place a law on the kingdom that no citizen should have any intercourse with his or her wife or her husband. And the people had this, how would I put it, this gradual resistance. And people started emigrating out of Benin City. When he noticed that the kingdom was being depopulated, he had the guards or the people who were very loyal to him also to dig the second moat, which is now the inner city wall. We call it Iyewai in Benin City. But there were chiefs that resisted him. One of the chiefs that resisted him was Oza, and Obaawari had to plan a scheme to deal with these chiefs, but Oza escaped. So to ensure that his people did not leave the city, he has dug a moat. And we need this, in this moat, he created 9 gates. It has been very interesting that The first time I learned about Benin having 9 gates, it was like, wow, do you mean Benin kings had this idea of building a gated city? One of the important features, or one of the greatest features of the Benin moat was that the earth that was dug out was 50 feet high and 50 feet wide, which means unless you come through the gates, you cannot enter the city. So these 9 gates, while we're bringing the past into the present and bringing the present into the past, we've been able to identify from extant works these 9 gates. One, you have the Ugoton Road called Iyauzebu leading to the Ekewan houses. There was a gate at that spot, and that's present day. If you go through Ekewan Road around the, I think the Yanga Market area, you find the moat. There was a gate there. There was another gate at Ogba Road, or the traditional name is Iruasa, called Iya Uruogba. Many people do not know where this gate is. This gate is presently situated at the Reservation Road, because the old palace was this area, the General Hospital, High Court were all palace ground. So whoever was going to use this gate had to go around the palace wall, then use the back of the palace, a spot where we called Amofi Parade Ground, to join these gates. And these gates also lead to a very traditional ground where the Europeans got to. I think that's not the subject for this discussion, but it's another interesting place. Then we had the Utantan, or Sokbomba Road. It was during the 1897 war that Asoro exclaimed Sokbomba and the road became Sokbomba. It was traditionally called Utantan Road. So the moat is called Iya Iviyeneva. It leads to the first place where we had the Ogiso Kings, which is called Ubekun, then to Idogbo and the Yokoriomo Everons. There is also another gate, the 4th gate, which is at Onwindun. And this gate is at the area where we have the 2nd Ogiso Palace. So it is called Iya Windun. It leads you to Imi. These are ancient towns in Benin Kingdom. The 5th gate, I think this should be the most significant, after Ugoton, this should be the most significant gate in Benin Kingdom, which was along the Baba Road. There is the area called the Buba. It was called the Iya Okedo. It leads to the Eastern Territories. So Dr. Veronica, this was the gate that we used towards Iseluku. I think that will be interesting for you too.
I am so going to call you after this, through Nekpe, because I need to, there's a lot. You are too much.
We also had another gate here, the Okoro Gate, and it is called the Iyawase. It leads to Ayen, Aho, Obadan. This is the gate that leads to parts of northern Edo, Edo North. Then the 7th gate was the Uselu Ufon Road, which was called Iyaro. Iyaro because Chief Ero, who had to relocate to Urubi during the reign of Obaadolo, if I'm not mistaken, because he had to take care of during the reign of Obaavoramin, thank you, because he had to take care of during the reign of Obaadolo, because he had to take care of Ieya. Queen Ieya was the mother of Obaavoramin. So, and because they were very close, so he has to, Chief Ero was relocated to Urubi. Until today, the chief is still there. And we'll mention something interesting about the Ero family later on in this discussion. So at Iyaro, there was another gate, and that gate leads to the Uselu area. We also have the 8th gate, which was along Sapler Road. It was in Mose. I hope I remember to go back to the map and just see how it points out to everybody where these 9 gates are. So this gate leads to other parts of the ancient towns and villages. Ivioto, this town was called Ivioto because these were the Aboriginal settlers before any wave of migration that came into Benin and then begin to absorb them before political organization evolved in Benin Kingdom. So this area, Ibioto, Etete, are pre-literate, pre-everything towns. But today, urbanization has taken over this area. We have the Siloko Udo Road, which was called Iya Isekere from Ibiwe, leading to Ihogbe, Olea, and Ego Use. We know that Ego and Use played very significant roles in the restoration or in the formation of the present dynasty of kings, because Obaeweka I was a grandson of the Ogegu, and then he was trained and nurtured as Use. We have other important sites like the Ediendo, which is the ancestral altar of everybody in Benin Kingdom. And
Mr.
this site,
Godfrey, Mr. Godfrey, sorry. Can we quickly wrap up so that we go to the question session?
Of course, I know that. Thank you very much, and sorry for your time. But here we have the Ediendo, an altar dedicated to the departed ancestors of Benin Kingdom. We also have, importantly, like I said before, the Awe Mota. A Mota was just a petty trader, which we call Kemi Kemi. She introduced Kidagande in Benin Kingdom because while she was in the market making her trade, she could take care of children of other women who had come to the market to buy, to sell their wares and buy things. So, and when they close at the end of the day, they will go back. A Mota was immortalized by Obaewari because she provided shelter for him when he had to fight his brother during the Civil War. So this was the pictures of Oba Akenzo II when they commissioned, this is a full bronze bust that was commissioned to replace the tree that fell in the 1950s. And here is a Benin woman during the ceremony who was fully decked in the Benin traditional attire. We have a lot of other sites. We also have Awiden. Recently, on February 14, a group, the Great Benin Descendants, have in the past 4 years been championing the cause of celebrating within our society February 14 as Eden Day rather than celebrating St. Valentine, because all these deities are our own saints. In the part of this presentation, I forgot to mention what we call Ihe and deities and ancestors in Benin. We're in our own traditional context canonized. So they are all saints. And I subscribe to that idea. We have also another very important sculpture in Benin, the Asoro sculpture. It was Asoro who exclaimed Sokbomba when he was resisting the British forces along the Utatan Road. He waged a very formidable defense and killed several British officers during the 1897 war. And so today we have a sculpture of him standing at the Sokbomba Junction, where you have the soldiers, British soldiers lying down. We also have a Bikini. The Bikini statue stands between First Bank and Bava Road, which was the main high road in Benin Kingdom. Bikini was also a very prominent warrior in 1897. You could see the statue standing with a very big sword, which we call Omozo in Benin. Interestingly, we have a Mwemwe statue, which is around Okedo. This statue was built and constructed by Benin warriors while they were being supported by Portuguese warriors in the 16th century during the reign of Obaesige. It was with this stratagem that Queen Idia was able to lead the Benin warriors with the support of the Portuguese, like I mentioned earlier on, to defeat the invading Ida forces from Igala. We have the site of Iyase Benede. The Iyase Benede has 2 altars in Benin, one in the Webu Street and the other at Unabe. Why is it important? He was one of the very formidable Benin warriors, and he served under Oba Ehengbuda. Why he went to war, fighting for Benin Kingdom and expanding Benin Kingdom as far as where we call Ilesha, Ado. Benede has taken Benin as far as Ado, Ekiti, Ikare. He has taken over all this area. Rather than coming home to meet or to be welcomed triumphantly, he came home and unfortunately saw that the Oba has executed his only son on the allegation that he had entered the Oba's harem. Entered the Oba's harem in Benin. The Benin people will understand what that expression means. So Benede retaliated. He killed the Oba's daughter who was betrothed to him. And for that reason, a whole lot of things transpired, but the Benin people defied Benede for his service to the kingdom and for his magical powers. We have Ero Izedome. I said I will come back to this earlier on. The Ero family had created, they have a full sculpture of Chief Ero Izedome, who was the Ero when Benin was sacked. And it was his singular position when the district officer, James Swartz, was thinking of making Agwo-Obaseki the Oba of Benin. He insisted, irrespective of the pressure, Obi-Oba the Oba Wedo. It was that singular statement that saved the throne for Prince Agwo-Obaseki, who reigned from 1914 to 1930. So Ero has also the statue is also there as a monument in Benin Kingdom. The fifth museum has to do with Arosa in Benin. This has to do with our relationship with the Portuguese and early missionaries. We have Tiri Arosa in Benin. As a living museum, in 1946, Oba Akinzwa II had transformed and revived Arosa Nakbakbava. Although Arosa Nogbelaka and Arosa Nerie or Nigbesawa are still being used in the traditional sense. But Godianism, the worship of God without intermediaries, is what the Benin people practice, and that is what you have at Arosa. Another interesting part of Benin City, which everybody would love to know, is the fact that every guild that was in the service of the king in the Oba's palace had a quarter. And these quarters like Igbesama, Igun, Owina, they are still there. And it was interesting, I must confess, that despite years of working in Benin, I just learned last week that the streets we call Owina had 3 quarters. We had Owina Nido, we have Emehe, we have Iwoki, and we have the Owina. So these other 3 quarters are within Owina streets today. That is what conurbation or urbanization and modernization has done to us. But thank God, we are saying these quarters are alive and they are still existing, and these guilds are still performing their duties to the kingdom. Here is a picture by you'll see figure 5 is myself standing with bronze bust, and the bronze bust is what I have in my background. And then Chief Obasogeni Gunuboa, where we do smithing. The Igun Guild has a lot of things to offer the kingdom, because in earlier times, the Gunuboa, who were the ironsmiths, went as far as replicating the guns that were imported by the Portuguese. And so we had Isiemeru Quarter, where we have Amarizeme, which was like the armory or the arsenal of Benin Kingdom. And whereas the Isiemeru people were stationed there during Oba Ewedo just to be a watchdog on the Ogiame. And so the Isiemeru people evolved Mr. Johnson Odibo. The Odibo of the Oba were those that were used to create that guild called Isiemeru. We have the Igbesawan Quarter. We have Igbesawan Quarter where we have carvers, and many of us are into different types of trade. Permit me to run down a bit. We have another important monument in Benin, which comes to life during coronation of the Oba, is the Omi River at Isekere. When you were talking about women in Benin, in Africa, or when we're talking about women in Benin Kingdom, we are too quick to say that in the patrilineal society, women has no place. It is very erroneous. And one of the pains I have today as a historian and a researcher is the fact that the knowledge that we replicate and circulate, the knowledge that we consume and reproduce, and knowledge that we have bequeathed to us by early colonial anthropologists, historians, and researchers who visited Africa, particularly Benin Kingdom. It is unfortunate, I must say this, because when you look at how the Western media today portray any society they don't like, you will understand my points.
Yes.
So we have here the Omi River. When the Oba is to be crowned, he has to cross this river. And when he's crossing this river, there's usually a young maiden that stands beside the king, showing the female support given to Prince Oromio when he was coming from Uhe to Benin Kingdom to establish the present dynasty of kings.
So the female assisting the Oba to cross the river must be a virgin, right?
Can you keep your question till we get to the question?
To
I
get
know
to
you
the
are
next
curious.
session.
I know you are
have a
curious.
lot.
I want to get in there. I want to get in there. Distinguished listeners, sorry, I've been so carried away talking about this. I need to acknowledge that you are still here. Despite the spirit of changes brought by modernization in Benin City since 1897, I'm confident to tell you that the city can still boast of these heritage sites. The existence of this monument is significant to the preservation and continuation of the tradition and civilization of the past. By implication, these monuments make Benin Kingdom or Benin City a living museum. Hence, visiting present Benin City as a visitor, you will always be at home when you see these treasures, because the kingdom will greet you with something historical, something cultural at every turn. I give you an example of a turn. A turn is when you stand at Ring Road and you turn around, every junction you look at has a history to tell. When AYSS Street was converted to Gowon Road, just to honor General Gowon, but still, thank God today it is still called AYSS. But funny enough, people know it popularly as Forestry Road, or Ababa that leads to Okedo. So every turn you have anywhere you stand in Benin Kingdom, every turn greets you with something historical that is very fascinating. Digitalizing Benin, the future museum as a living museum. I will not dwell so much in this. What the idea I want to pass, or the message I want to pass across here, is that it is high time we think of using digital technology to recreate the space so that these histories can be communicated, so that you can come to a point in Benin where you stand at the gate and then you can see from a digital screen, this is Iyewaye, and this gate is called the Iya Iwiye Neva Gate. And then you can tell some of the stories that are there, so that both home and abroad, we are all able to key into the past and bring it alive again. Interestingly, before I forget, each of those gates that were created.
Let's quickly wrap up. I'm getting some signals.
Each of those gates that were created were manned by people that were called Ukonuro.
In conclusion.
I think it's true. So please, yeah, so that we can have Q&A questions later.
Thank you, sir. As a historian, Benin Kingdom has been my laboratory. Its history and culture are my apparatus. So
we need you. We have a symposium in Chicago in August. So I'm going to call you to arrange for you to participate. Oh my God.
I have been able to convince you that Benin is indeed a living.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mrs. Nekme, for bringing Mr. Ekhator. That was phenomenal. Oh,
so how long did you do this research? How long? Mr. Ekhator,
Well, research is knowledge production, is a thing that continues and it never ends.
This is so in-depth of the history, really especially the...
I am so excited about it. I get so many familiar things that I want to have Mr. Nekme meet the historian of Iseluku. He's here in the Bay Area, and connect Ekhator. It'll be great. And I'm looking at August. We're trying to do a symposium on history because people have so many questions about our history that this will be so encompassing.
Exactly.
So thank you very much, Mr. Ekhator. Really interesting. Of course, you know, if we have to add even 2 hours.
Apologies for taking too much of your time. Don't mind me, I'm a historian.
I know. I mean, it's part of it, you know. Even if we add 2 hours, we can still listen here and talk. But unfortunately, because of the time, that's why we had to make you speed up. But again, if you don't mind, if you can write your contact number, I will be reaching out to you personally. You know, if I put it on the chat room, you know, so I can contact you again, you know, on personally, you know, because I think there's a lot to learn, you know, from all the teachings you've gotten here. And for those who've not placed order for the book by my sister Nekme, please do so. The links have been shared. I've gotten my link out. I would order mine after this session. But I encourage everyone to do that. I think it's something, a book everyone or should be in every home. Having said that, I think the floor now should be open for questions. I don't know what the amount of time we have to apportion to that. Maybe about, say, half an hour, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, however the case may be, so we can round up on time. So
before you go to question and answers, can you please let the young person you said
Thank you
to talk? Our future is these young people. And if we have somebody young on this forum who is interested in this rich history of ours, please give this young person an audience, even if it's 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. O. You always rock. Thank you.
Thank you.
Look at her. She's like a princess. If you are the host, can you please highlight her? The host of this, please highlight her so we can see her and enjoy her presence. Let me see who's the host.
I think is she
Princess K.
Hello.
Yes, it's true. Just keep talking, then you will come up.
Okay. Hello, everyone. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Okay, that's good. Well, I've came on here today to obviously talk about my heritage, as I'm from London and was born and bred in London. But I found out that I have a heritage of Nigeria and I'm part of the Edo tribe. And I'd like to definitely look more into that, as it's definitely a really important part of my life, and everyone should have the chance to get to know a lot more about themselves and where they come from. This meeting has been very important to me, as I've heard a lot of information from the previous people that have talked about their heritage and a lot about Nigeria itself. And my mum's here to talk a bit more about my heritage and much more.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello, nice to meet all of you.
Hello.
My name is Sabrina, and this is my beautiful daughter, Princess K. She is a dancer and she is an ambassador. She is an actress and she is a speaker and confidence advocate.
Amazing.
So she has a lot of hats that she has on, and basically she is on Instagram and she normally does dancing, and through that there was a lot of people that came through and said that they are very, very sure that she may be Nigerian. And after getting quite a lot of people coming through, we took an ancestry test last year, and it became true that she is 44% Nigerian. Wow. And 22% Benin. So basically the research that came through was also that she is from the lineage of the Dahomey warrior queens that were based in Benin a long time ago. That's why she has such a courageous spirit. I think that she has a very, very courageous and brave spirit. And I think that's where it comes from. So basically, I reached out to some people on Instagram, and they also gave me some people like our wonderful host, Nick Penn. She has spoken to me and encouraged me, and is going to also help me to find family members, find out more about Benin history, about Edo culture. And we are really interested to do this because my daughter would like to be an ambassador for culture and for heritage. She has started her journey doing this already in Ghana. So I would like to put that back.
Bravo, kudos.
So when I recently went to Ghana, I saw that there was a lot of people that have a lot of talent, possibly more talented than me, and they don't really have the limelight that they deserve. So I would like to start sort of an initiative to allow people in Ghana, Nigeria, all across the globe to share their talent with people around the world and be able to get the life that they deserve and all the things that they deserve. Because when I went to Ghana, it was really inspiring that there was a lot of people that would hustle to get all the support that they needed. And I would like to be that support source to help out everyone all across the globe, especially in Nigeria, as that's definitely a place where I am mostly from, as I have 44% of the Edo community in my blood. And I thought that it would be an amazing opportunity to share my talent and everything that I have with people that are part of my family.
Fantastic.
Are you planning to visit the Benin Kingdom anytime from?
I am planning to meet with everyone in the Kingdom of Benin, and it would definitely be a pleasure to be over in Nigeria and meet everyone there.
Awesome.
You should probably connect with Miss Nekwe to see when she's going home. Then you get the best experience if you tag along with her.
Yes, because today, as you can see, she's wearing the headwear. She was gifted this from a chief because she done a performance last week at an event, and she was dancing, and they gave her this as a gift.
Wow.
So she felt very happy about that. Yes, so basically, yeah, we're trying to pick apart the information that we have currently and want to look more into her ancestry. She will be, when she visits, she will be setting up another part of her charity that she has already started in Ghana, also in Nigeria. And she will be looking at children that are like her, who have talents that, well, she is very well educated, but some of them are not. And some of them are then put on the wayside as, you know, not being useful. So what we think is that people all have God-given talents, that they have something that they like to do, that they can do naturally. And we think that we can give people tools to utilize what they have and basically make a future for themselves. There is a lot of children that have dreams and aspirations, but it is cut short by the negative sometimes connotations of what people think children should be doing. And some of them feel that children should be seen and not heard. And we want to give children more of a voice. And we want to put forward their opinions. We want them to be future leaders. And the only way that we can do that is if we support them in whatever endeavors that they want to do. Princess has been fortunate enough to visit over 10 countries.
Wow.
Doing her dancing. She is a
Well, okay, we lost your audio for a second there.
Oh, okay, Princess. I think we have to, you know, the other day we discussed a lot about your connection with the Benin Kingdom. I can also connect you with Mr. Ekhator-Obogie in Benin, because he's the secretary of the Institute for Benin Studies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He knows everything. And he does pretty much everything in the Benin Kingdom. So I'll connect you with him whenever you are visiting Benin. According to what he said during his presentation, that he used to take people around the city.
Oh, wow.
So he is the best person to do that.
We all need to connect with him. I almost feel like he's a Prince Ekhator. And you're dressed like a Benin princess today, you know that? You are definitely dressed like a princess. If you look at Sister Nekwe, you see like she's the queen look and you're the princess look.
Yes, of course. The beads, you know.
That's right. That's right. So
we can hear you. Can you speak in front of
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Okay, better.
Yes. So may we say that the speakers that have spoken so far have given a lot of light and a lot of more detail to some of the questions that we had about Benin. Some of them we've done a lot of research on Google and we've been given information, but in such a short space of time, Mr. Godfrey has really touched on a lot of historical things, and I would really be interested in staying in touch with most of you in the room, because we would like to build a community for Princess, for her to find her information that she would like. And I'm very glad that my daughter wants to take this journey into finding her lineage and her heritage. And she's going to need all the help that she can. So I'm very, very happy to have met all of you. And we will be staying online to listen to everybody and what they have to say and gain more information and clarity. We definitely want to visit very, very soon. We have had some contact from the palace. One of the brothers of the Oba has approached us on social media, and they're very much aware of her and would like for her to visit. But because she's in school, we have to pick the right timing in terms of, you know, her journey to go there during half term or summer holidays. So we have already started that conversation with NECPEN already about going over there and introducing her to her community over there. So thank you very much for giving us a bit of time to speak today, and we will stay online to hear more stories and more information. Thank you very much. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Princess. I will talk to you guys soon. All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Can I thank Dr. O for reminding us, because we got distracted a little bit. Thank you, Dr. O.